Welcome back to a special installment of As the Wheel Turns, So Do the Days of Our Rides. Hey, welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, Hanging with a Guy. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy. And today is special because we're going to go over a couple interesting things and show my very first podcast. Kind of a crazy loop of events, and I kind of want to give a little bit of background information before I actually show the video, the podcast. First and foremost, I want to thank the people at National Bicycle Dealer Association for reaching out. Basically reaching out to me and seeing my point of view and how I'm running my business, in addition to how YouTube, here on YouTube, has helped my business as well as my community that I'm trying to build. Clark from Victory Cycles in Memphis, Tennessee. Awesome cat, was a newer member of the NBDA. He wanted to bring in kind of a new perspective and blood, and NBDA is a group of nonprofit bike shops, independent bike shops that get together. They also have P2 groups and they share information, trying to, like a community build based. Before all this community build based stuff began, Clark is an individual that basically is a newer member, and it's kind of like the why me and kind of perspective. And he really is bringing some great insights of, hey, we need to be a little more diverse. And he was very excited at seeing a couple of my pieces on As the Wheel Turns, So Do the Days of Our Rides, specifically the specialized video, which I'll have linked below in the comments. And I'm using YouTube to leverage my business to help expand it, as well as found a community. I am so stoked about this. And it's been about 1.5 years of doing this, and I'm finally gotten to a level where I'm getting some attention. If you like the things that you've seen on this and it intrigued you, please put some comments. And if you're interested in the NBDA, yeah, awesome. Yeah, check them out. Look at some information they have to provide. I'll have a link to that in the description as well. And thanks, shout out again for Clark at Victory Cycles. And if you're in Memphis, Tennessee, go check out the store. It actually looks pretty awesome. And the guy has so much energy, and he provides that warm hug. So I'm sure you'll get a warm hug, handshake, or the best experience, or one of the best experiences when you walk into a shop. In any case, without further ado, let's start this podcast.
We'll jump right in. My name is Clark Butcher. I own a bicycle store in Memphis, Tennessee called Victory Bicycle Studio. I am a recent board member addition with the National Bicycle Dealers Association. And super excited to have Justin on air, willingly on air today. Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself. I'll roll into how and why I reached out to you. But man, tell us about yourself, where you're from, what you're doing.
Oh, sounds great. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. I appreciate reaching out and talking to a little guy like me in the garage. And yes, that's me. Basically, current day, I have a bike shop built out of my garage, out of my home. And this has been a few years of building up. And what I provide is a local service for tune-ups and repairs. And main focus is working on refurbishing bikes, road bikes, more so, to bring to the market and provide a good used outlet for people. Not just locally, I do ship across the nation. So that's kind of like my business model of today. But I've been in industry for over 30 years. My parents and I had a bike shop in Parker, Colorado. Started in the late 80s through the 90s. And I worked in several shops in the 2000s and the teens as well, from big to small and other parts of the country. So a lot of different background in the last 30 years. And yeah, that does make me kind of sound old, doesn't it? But anywho, that's me in a nutshell. Just kind of a crazy old kook in the garage and just making my own stuff and working on it. So that's me.
Well, hey, it's one I'm excited to share with all the listeners, kind of where you came about. And just me personally, I'm a YouTube whore. I think I can say whore. If not, that'll get bleeped. But no, super into it. And one of your videos came across whatever algorithm and came into my scene. And it was really more or less like a state of the market. I compared a lot to friends of mine that are in the financial space. And I'm like, you guys have something you watch or something you read each day that is this very, very fair, very equal, non-biased state of the market. And then so I watched one and I was like, man, this guy's speaking to me. Like he's not speaking to consumers. I mean, I guess you are the consumers that care about that, but I was like, man, he's speaking to me. And then obviously I went in and dug deeper, saw your channel, saw your subscribers, all that. But so that's the why. I was so impressed, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But let's first get to know you better. Tell us, you grew up in the bicycle shop. Your folks had a shop. What happened to that shop, and where did you transition to afterwards?
That's a good long story. I'll try to keep it short. But yeah, I mean, I was a kid right out of high school. Started working on my parents' bike shop. They had a shop about a year or two before I started working there, and I this is back in the 80s and the 90s culture of bike shops. Basically, there wasn't as many chains there is today, and most bike shops self-cultivated their crew. They brought them in as like high school kids, and they taught them how to fix flats, build bikes, and they move on to repairs. I did the same role. Basically all those points through the 90s, and eventually I managed my parents' shop with my parents, and it was a day-to-day grind. I mean, it's one of those things that when you're busy, you're working 12 of 13, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. When you're slow, you're hoping for the next customer to come in the door. And year in, year out, we had some really successes. We've had some failures, and eventually the failures caught up to us. In addition to rent expensive, we expanded when we shouldn't have expanded. Unfortunately, my dad came down with cancer at the time, and that kind of put everything in a tailspin quickly. And we crashed and burned in 2001 within, I'd say, 6 months. Like, we expanded, did okay through halfway through the summer. By that December, we're closing our doors. So it was pretty quick. And it's kind of heartbreaking in a sense, because I still carry that load with me today. Because it's one of those things, it's a family business, and my dad survived cancer, which was the silver lining of the
Awesome.
situation. But the failure, you can see it in his eyes, right? It's like, and he being beaten down, and my mom as well, it kind of just carries. So I've always wanted to come back in a way. It took me several years. But through the glory of all that hard work and brick and mortar and learning and so forth, I still had a lot more to learn. I mean, it was kind of like one of those things that you got a lot of learnings, and then I ended up in Lee's Cyclery in Fort Collins, Colorado, and they had 3 locations, and the owner picked me up, and I worked for him off and on for a good 15 years.
What were you
So
doing for Lee's? Were you wrenching? Were you managing staff? What were you doing? Obviously, transferring from a family business where I'd imagine you wear a
yeah,
lot of hats.
yeah.
Now working for another individual. What were you doing, and how is that transition going from working with the family to not?
It was an eye opener for sure. One of those things that you've worked with a family business for 12 years, and then you're in a scope of a different dynamics. I started off as a service manager at one of the locations, and then I got shifted over to another location, which was bigger volume, as a service manager. And I, this is where it gets kind of tricky. Is about 2, 3 years into it, I hit the glass ceiling. Like, there was nowhere else for me to go. Back in those days, there was no kind of corporate ladder per se, or anywhere to go except becoming a outside rep, or something of that nature. So I left and worked for a big bad chain store called Big Five Sporting Goods, and that gave me opportunity to go up the ranks there. But in the interim, I did go back to the bike shop and worked at Lee's part time as a wrench, to help out and throw some extra cash and so forth. But my last role would be at Lee's Cyclery. I went back full time after a few years, and I was the inventory manager. And that it gave me the freedom and flexibility of working Monday through Friday, That's the perfect scenario for anybody working in retail. And that was pretty awesome. And then that's where I got introduced to Retail Toolkit, which is a software program that helped bike shops manage their inventory. And that's where I kind of jumped ship out of the bike shop world into the software world. And not being a dev person myself, but I was kind of the liaison between you bike shop people and the dev team and how to utilize the program. So I did that for a few years. And the program was owned by Noel from Wheel and Sprocket, Kegel. And we did really good work for a while. Then I just branched away. I was kind of like, this is not 100% for me. And the direction of the company too, where he was going to go with it, was unsure. So, but then I started doing the side hustle of refurbishing bikes, and boom, lo and behold, I'm doing what I'm doing today full time. I do have a software gig, but it's very, very, very part time. And this is where I live the dream. And it's kind of like every day I do a lot of reflection. And it's kind of forced upon me because I'm by myself working in a garage, right? So that's my kind of the story from being in the bike shop, small and pop, to a bigger chain. There is another little mix in there in between. We went to Michigan for a little bit, but I was working for a Retail Toolkit at the time. But I did work at a local shop in Michigan called what was it called Wheels in Motion, in which they've expanded, and also another small shop or bigger shop in Detroit area for a bit. But been around, seen a lot from different brands too, which is kind of a lot of different perspectives from big to small, and also big bad chain store perspective too.
Tell me, you touched on it briefly, and just a little bit of background research into you. I saw that you were doing this retail software sales for a handful of years. Tell me, like, what were you able to bring? I mean, I saw just briefly diving into it that it was a product marketed towards bike shops. What were you able to bring to the team and the development in terms of obviously not being a software guy, being a real world bike shop guy? What were you able to bring to them? And are there any like little features that are maybe in that product that make you smile? Like, I'm the one who told him we need to have that button or that pop up or that scheduler.
Yeah, that's you kind of hit it on the head there. Yeah, when I started with Retail Toolkit, it was called Wheel Toolkit at the time, but that's just nor here nor there. But it was basically at first a software management program with an algorithm, and Noel is super smart cat. I mean, Will and Sprocket has like 8 or 9 stores. He developed this product for his dad to run his stores, and when he went to the P2 groups, there was a lot of the P2 people, including Archie at the Lee Cyclery that I worked at, was like, I want that program to use with my shop. So yeah, it was implemented through the Send backend computer. So it was a big old, setup process. And then you had to go through your inventory. And since I was the inventory manager at the time, I had to develop inventory trees and kind of make it more sense for being the perspective of a bike shop person, and also knowing inventory of a bike shop. The software needed to be customized, right? And they loved how I did it, to the point where Retail Toolkit's like, hey, do you want to do this with other clients? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. That'd be awesome. So that turned into a job. I'm still working with bike shops across the nation, but I was on a lot of Zoom calls, showing them how to use the product. Basically the learnings of how to do. There's a lot. It's very complicated. It had a lot of levers that you can change and spit out these numbers, and how to read those numbers and how to utilize it to leverage to push your business forward without getting too much inventory. And the other products while I was there that came up with was a scheduler program, which that had its own little algorithm too, to manage your payroll, which was huge. And I think the biggest one that they came out with before or right I was leaving was kind of like a rewards program and a marketing piece where you can send out emails that related to your inventory and that kind of thing. It was kind of
It's just all across the board, just
it got
managing
it
and
kind of
running a
across the board.
shop.
Yeah, yeah. They were trying to add where, I mean, obviously the model was Will and Sprocket with their 8 or 9 locations, and what their needs were really folded into this product, of course. And then that kind of translated or resonated really well with other shop owners that had multiple locations. Because if anybody has more than 2 stores, they're half the time pulling their hair out trying to figure out all the nuances of each location and how to run them and how to manage all of that. So this program really helped kind of made you see the real numbers, and it did a lot of positives. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, something like this really helped out a lot of shops, and me. My role of communicating with these owners and inventory managers of other shops and help them get through that hurdle was really helped. And I basically it saved quite a few shops too. They had way too much inventory. They didn't know what they were buying, that kind of thing. And it kept, they had bigger staff and sell, they had buyers and so forth. They knew gave them everybody guardrails basically. So
I
helped
mean,
out there.
let's talk about this. Let's go backwards for a sec, because a lot of what you've done, and being that I haven't seen any big gaps in employment history or what you've been doing and in terms of the industry, but a lot of what you do is really leveraging your knowledge and helping others. If it's your YouTube, which we're going to dive into in a minute, or if it's just this, how you were able to leverage your time in the saddle to help other shops and really, kind of fabricate this software and make it a little more authentic and realistic. Who shaped your work ethic?
That would be definitely the Parker Bikes days. My dad. I mean, he really yeah, we worked together side by side. It was always a team effort. He was an individual that was one of those people that worked with everybody. I mean, even if it was the competitors, he'd be very, he would, he'd work with them. And to the most point that he would work with them to do the local charity rides. Like he coordinated bike shops for the MS-150 in our neck of the woods. He talked to all the shop owners. He was very personal. And coming from that perspective and from an industry that I've grown to love, at first it was just a job, and then it became a lifelong passion as a wrench. I didn't get in by being a racer or any means. It was the other way. I came in from the back door of the bike shop. Like I worked on bikes and I loved the
How old
tech
were
and
you?
all that stuff. Oh, I was 18 when I
18 when you
started.
got started?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
old were you when you were hanging, like, were you hanging around the folk shop? I mean, I don't have children, but I always think about, like, if I did, like, man, I would love to have like my kid at the store, even if it's just cleaning and fixing flats or whatever, just around. Like, uh, how old were you when you started hanging around, or was 18 when the shop started, or tell me,
It,
I mean,
it
working with the family had
yes.
to be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a year and a half before I actually started working there. They opened in 87. I started in 89, so it was about 2 years. And yeah, this is kind of like the darker side of where I grew up. Is I'm originally a punk rocker. I mean, I came from kind of a rough childhood ish. I mean, not really bad, but in a sense that I didn't have a focus, and that's where my adolescent days of having a mohawk, that my dad would not let me work at the bike shop with the mohawk. I tried and he wouldn't. So I had to go through that phase first before I started working at the shop. And I can tell you straight up that the bike shop culture, the bike shop life, working with my parents basically saved me, kept me from going a bad path, and gave me a direction. And talking to other people that have been influenced by cycling, there's a lot of stories that are very similar, where cycling has saved them from whatever their hurdles or depression or abuse or whatever. It's really saved them. So that's the heartstrings of it for sure.
And that's kind of, it's a beautiful segue into really the next phase of this, which is, obviously I want to dive into the YouTube channel, but it's hearing you talk about your relationship with your dad and work ethic wise, it only makes me think of yesterday when you and I caught up and we were talking about, like, most of us bike shop owners are a little bit proprietary when it comes to information, especially with other local bike shop folks. And, whereas heck, you come right out with it and talk about your dad was friends with the other shops and rallied them for MS-150 rides and was always kind of a medium, I guess you'd say. And it's funny hearing you say that because it reminds me exactly what I think about when I listen to your YouTubes. And kind of, again, I keep saying, and maybe I need to rebrand, but like your state of the market. And obviously, we've got a lot more going on your channel, but let's dive into it. What inspired you to start YouTube? Was it being solo in the garage all day and man, I need to hit record and talk to somebody? What was it? What look, let's, and when I ask you that, I'm going to ask it from this frame of reference. When it comes to bike shop owners leveraging social media, there's not a lot of great ones out there. I'm totally fine saying that. You can quote me on that, but it's the typical Facebook and Instagram are probably the easiest in terms of barrier to entry, right? Like you can attach a photo, you can make a post. YouTube, we've got video, we've got lighting, we've got microphones, we've got posting, we've got editing, we've got all that stuff. So let's talk about like what inspired you to run with YouTube. Because again, a quick analysis of your other social media channels, man, you're all in on YouTube, and your other channels are
Yeah, and that's yeah. Let's from the beginning of the idea of I know a guy, which came from my wife. It's like, hey, how about I know a guy?
Give credit, dude.
Yeah. So we were, at a conference of hers, and we were talking. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna want to do this. I'm gonna want to do this full time. I did a little test run. I know a guy, and I want to do bicycles. And she's like, we need to come up with a name. And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, how about I know a guy? I'm like, I love it. So it became I know a guy bicycles. And then, I did leverage those other platforms first. I did Facebook page and I did the Instagram and, tried to do Twitter or X now, what you want to call them. And the thing is I had some successes, of course, with all those, but you're running a business and I'm a one-man band. I mean, you got all this time, right? You got to balance all these different things throughout the day from customers to everything else. But the YouTube part, initial video, and you'll see it on my channel, is basically reassembling a bike that I shipped you. That was the first video I needed. I felt like I needed to get out there. And it was not really necessarily I was thinking of a YouTube channel at that time. I was just more like, well, I need to add some more weight to my website because I wanted to use my website as a portal for everything, for every social media thing and sales and all that, right? And that's most businesses want to do that, and you're leveraging YouTube, a platform to bring those videos, so you're not paying for all this extra space, so you're just using them. And I made those videos, and about a 6 months, a year later, I'm like, okay, I need to put out more videos to represent what I do, like more of a value prop of you come across my website, you see a bike you like, but you're like, who is this guy? And he calls himself the guy. Like, who is this guy? And you see a couple of videos of me working on bikes, so it gives the value or legitimacy of my website and what I do, and they feel comfortable selling or buying off my website versus eBay and other platforms and so forth. That's where it started. And when I started getting into doing more of those videos, I noticed there was a culture, and it's kind of like you got to crawl before you walk, you got to walk before you run. And my first videos, I do shamefully say they're bad. The sound's horrible. The editing,
they're still out there
questionable.
Though. They're still valuable.
But it's out there. Yes, and it's one of those things, you put it up there and it's there forever. And you have people, but that's where I got my beginning core people reaching out and commenting, and what it's fast forward to today of doing all those learnings like you mentioned before, getting better mics, better lighting, editing. It's just become a process. And today that is my daily process. I'm working on a video every morning, on editing or something of that nature, of try to produce it. I'm producing between 3 to 4 videos a week, trying to keep what's really cool of what I do is I'm constantly working on something different all the time. And the idea, the very basic premise was if you were hanging out in the shop with me and we were just you working on your bike, I'm working on mine, and we're just jibber jabbering. That's what I was trying to project or make at the time. So it's kind of like bringing you into the back of the shop, hanging out with me while we're working on this stuff and showing you the details, and get a little history lesson on the bike I'm working on, and maybe some little tips and tricks on some random things of the period of that 20-year-old derailleur or what I may have come across and that kind of thing. So that's the girth of it, and the idea of that is transformed to basically, I call it this old bike, kind of like this old house. Um, this old bike is kind of like, you're working on bikes and you just move it from there.
Tell me what kind of time are you spending making 2 to 3 videos a week? For those other shop owners listening in that we're hopefully going to inspire throughout this. Manage us on timing, right? You could be
Yeah.
working, repairing, and selling bikes, but you're making videos. So how are you managing your time?
Well, if you look at, being a service manager, time is everything, right? You have your guys and gals, and you have a certain amount of time to do a tune up and so forth, whatever that may be. The tune ups, I used to be a production mechanic too, so I was like cranking, pushing bikes out, and a standard tune up for the tune-ups that I do, about an hour and a half. Well, when you add the video component of it, like having a camera trail around me, doing things, moving it around, basically double the time, right? So you add another hour and a half to that. And then you add the editing portion of it, which I put a lot more editing into than now because I'm over 4K of subscribers. So I want to be a little more cleaner looking and a little more focused, zooming in on things and better sound and all that. So I put in about an hour on the video. So it is a lot of time to put into it. And then you got the marketing piece, right? You set it to launch, but you want to share it to Instagram and on an email list and then in your website and everywhere you can to get that
Sure.
attention to that video that you launched. So you have that piece of it as well. But it sounds crazy. You're taking a tune up that you're making, I don't know, let's say $100 on, right? And basically that's an hour and a half to 2 hours of work just for the tune up itself. And then you bleed that out another 3 to 4 hours. So you're basically making, I don't know, what, $15, $20 an hour, kind of thing. But here's the catch. That video, number one, if you do it right and do all the descriptions and the words, to catch all the SEO stuff and get it on the Google searches and so forth, that video will get in front of somebody. And let's say, for example, a Trek 5200 with the USPS carbon frame, right? Everybody's seen it with Lance Armstrong and all that. It's still, regardless how
It's a
your opinion is
classic,
about
man.
Lance, it's a
That
classic
bike
bike,
still rocks.
and they're solid and what have you. So you come up with that, and if you're an individual looking for that bike used or whatever, and you see my video pop up, you're gonna watch it, and then you get insights of the bike, and then you get excited about it. Then you're like, either they contact me directly and go, hey, do you have another one in my size? Or I like how you worked on that bike. Could you help me this direction or another? So it's not just the video and the cost of the video. What you're getting out of it is, your niche, your brand is getting out there. And then you're driving those customers that will come in or come back to you to either buy parts or another bike. I have people just constantly looking at my website waiting for bikes to come up, that kind of thing. And it becomes a culture too. And they reach out, it's like, well, how do I work on this or that? So there's another whole layer of making an income off of the YouTube channel with that as kind of like a soft sale, if you will. And that also, resonates with a lot of people, because they're not just upfront smacking them with the sell price or free shipping or whatever. It's getting to like, okay, they get to know you, get to know the bike, and then they're really into it. This case in point is really resonates with an individual that bought 3 of those bikes for me in Texas. And he periodically calls me up, and he likes to just call me. It's kind of funny. He just calls me up at a random, and he's like, "Yeah, I got the latest. I found this Lance Armstrong bike, the yellow team version, the same one, the 5900 one, and I bought it off this guy. It's almost mint condition, full DA, and he also had a jersey, a signed jersey. Like they're into it,
Sure.
and he's bought 3 bikes, and sure enough, as soon as I get another one his size, he's gonna buy it. I mean, it's like boom, it's out the door. I mean, now I don't have to think twice about it, and that's the cool thing is you're contributing to this culture, and it's not in your neck of the woods. I mean, like I said, I ship bikes down there across the nation, and
Sure.
people have really got into it in the sense that they can pull a bike out just like Canyon or Specialized. They go direct to consumer. They pull it out of the box, put it together pretty quickly, and they're on the road within 30 minutes. And it without any damage with shipping, it's going to shift pretty good and break for them. And a couple tips on fitting, and they're out the gate having a great time. And that's the core of it, right? That's what we want people to get into. We want to share our passion of cycling and get them on a bike and have the best experience possible. That's what, for me, my motto is, if you're not riding back from a test ride without a smile on your face, I'm not selling you a bike. That's
Right.
just, it's not good for either of us. So I'm not going to push you on it. And and that's the case, if they're coming back with a big smile, I'm like, that's awesome. I did my job right. And they got the right bike for them.
Right. It's like it's so funny. With my staff, I always tell them like, hey, if anyone ever gets upset, because it happens, right? Like some of
Mm-hmm.
these things cost money, and emotions can fly, and time is our commodity. And when something goes wrong on your bike on a ride, like, man, it sucks. Um, but I always remind them, I go, hey, historically, bike shops are happy places. So it's one of those, like, just remember, like, we're not performing brain surgery here. Like, there's no need to fall into that. Yeah, you got to smile. This is the bicycle business. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me, okay, so obviously, making videos with used bikes and connecting with those consumers, and obviously selling direct, and hell, I can only imagine how many OCLV 52, 55, 5900s you've sold over time. From That's a very commonly searched bike, and still a sought after one by many. What process do you go through when you make these? And again, until you correct me, I'm going to keep calling them state of the industry. Um, what what process do you go through before making those? Because uh, I can only imagine, like, when it comes for me, like making a video on a new bike, it's easy for me to talk about because I can get excited about the tech and the materials and the components and all that stuff. But you do these videos, and for instance, you did one recently that's on just globally, like is bike shops are overstocked, suppliers are overstocked. It's never been a better time to be a buyer, never been a crappier time to be a seller. Um, so but you say it so fairly and so clearly, and it's not doom and gloom. It's just the state. Like, what are you reading? What are you going through before you do those videos? Because look, they get loads of hits, right? And
Yeah.
and me personally, I'm telling you as a fan, that's why I reached out. Like, what do you go through to make those?
Well, the initial idea was the joke around saying that we had in the bike shop in the 90s is like you have like one of those soap opera moments in your shop, either it's from a customer or a rep or whatever. And we just coined it as like, as the wheel turns, so do the days of our rides. We just kind of play the words off the soap opera words. And I wanted to come up with a kind of, I mean, yeah, I got the tech videos. I got like this old bike. You're looking at those, but I was like, there need to be something else. I mean, and also when you're doing a YouTube channel, you're just throwing things at the wall just to see if anything sticks.
Sure.
Whatever resonates and so forth. And I came up with this idea of like, okay, I read the the bicycle retailer. I see the articles there and everything else about Trek and so forth. And I got drama in my backyard too, between Specialized and Trek, taking over stores and all that. And I've worked in the industry locally. I know the people that work at the shops. I mean, it's that kind of thing. So I came with that, just like, well, how about the perspective of somebody that's been in this industry for 30 years and just kind of read between the lines and, give my little opinion piece, really. And, from it's just the situations where Trek is buying stores or, Pond is not known very well, but the brands that they sell are known, like Sorello, Santa Cruz, GT, Schwinn. And then you have Specialized, and they're moving and stores and so forth. But that it was basically not thought out very well. It's just basically I picked a topic, the headline of a bicycle retailer, and I would just talk about it, unscripted, just out of the wall, and just threw at it and edited a little bit and called it good. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because the one video that blew up, and I wouldn't say it was my best work. Let's put it that way. To put a little bit of background on this, I'm going out of town with the family in 2 days. I'm like not very much sleep. We're trying to, get this trip together. I'm like, I need to get this video out while I'm out of town so I can schedule this. And I just talked to a customer of mine, and this is when Specialized was laying off people or, doing some moves and stuff back in October. And then I'm going to talk about Specialized. And yeah, I did a clickbait thinking, just very minimal thumbnail, like, is this it for Specialized? And wow,
Brilliant, dude. Brilliant, by the way. Like, what a hell of a YouTube thumbnail and title, right? Like, no doubt about it.
But it was unexpected, and it's one of those things. I know a couple other people do YouTube too, not in cycling, but completely different genres. And they're so funny, because the things that you put the most effort into hardly ever get any views. The ones that you just slap together real quick as you're going out the door, literally in this case, blows up. And my goodness, I basically had an energy drink in one hand. I was rambling about the points that I had in my head. And I probably was just, looping through a few of them, because I'm just standing there talking to myself with a camera and losing kind of track what I was talking about. And the comments were, yeah, you need to lay off the sauce, dude, or you're drinking, or they thought I was drunk. And
hey,
and it was an energy drink, and I was sober, just like sleep. What's that?
Anyone from the company reach out to you after these videos? Does anyone ever get upset? Or
in the comments, yeah. The majority of the comments on that particular one, they had and they're still getting views today. But the comments were a lot of them. The people have had either a bad experience with either Specialized or the industry or that kind of thing. And of course, I removed a lot of ones that have a lot of negativity and curse words and so forth, right? But as directly, no. But the weird thing, or not unexpected thing, let's put it this way, is like either former employees and so forth kind of validate, or other shops that do carry those brands have validated their experiences are very similar. So it's not like I'm just making this stuff up. It's like it's obviously my perspective. I've worked in shops that carried Specialized. I know how the company behaves, as well as Trek, and it's those things where it really kind of hit a core with a few. And as you were trying to, what you were saying is, I try to put a positive spin on it, or try to, because it's not all doom and gloom, but you can't just not talk about it. It's not like you can skirt around it. But on the flip side, what we're trying to do at the end of the day is take care of customers. Especially, basically, Specialized went through some hardships. They had some layoffs. They were opening stores, and they're doing this and that and the other. I mean, a lot of the industry is being affected that way. But at the end of the day, they're still going to be around. They're partially owned by Merida, which is a big, company. that, they have financial backers. They've always been a hot line. I mean, nobody can doubt that. It's like everybody knows the Specialized name. They did really great for their
Sure.
marketing. The bikes have always been kind of the leading edge of tech and stuff, and that may falter here and there, but for the most cases, it's pretty solid line. But the direction of the company is, I think they all are trying to figure out who they are now and how they're going to try to project themselves to the new consumer and the market. Because as independent bike dealers, that's mostly listening to this right now, is not the corporate stores. And then they're having corporate stores move in their neighborhood, and they're like, well, what do we do now? That's
Sure.
the biggest question.
Let me ask you. So a couple more questions for you. One, uh, I like your I know a guy and not I know everything guy. And
Yeah.
I mean it. Like it's you again you give this very very clean and open just state of what's happening in the business at the moment, but rarely do I hear you dive into what I would do if I were this company, or what should be done to correct or balance back out the industry in terms of supply and demand. And um, yeah, so I'm not going to ask you that, but it's one of those like, um, yes, there's no doubt about it. Like, there's never been a worse time for the corporately owned stores, right? There's no doubt about it. And, I'm sure acquisitions and all that have slowed. You'll probably know those facts better than me, but I'm just assuming that stuff has slowed. Like, do you think this is the time for independently owned bicycle shops? Do you think that the current state of the market makes it easier for those that are a little more flexible and nimble, or is this just going to be tough for everybody? And like, what do you think? Not what do you
Um,
know, but what do you think?
what I think? Well, what I think is, if you're a shop, this has actually become full circle. It's kind of crazy, because if you think about it, in the bike shops in the 90s, we were bike shops that had a niche, like we were a family shop or what have you. The brands we did carry, but the brands were not end all be all. It's now your local independent bike shops are scrambling, to find their niche, and actually they're having really good success with it in certain areas. They're focusing more on their community or service, or they're focused more on suspension work versus, they're taking their brands and kind of putting them in the background. And because the brands are not supporting the bike shops anymore, if they ever did. That's the real question, because that, early 2000s, you either were a Specialized concept store or a Trek concept store. And what shops are going to have to do is find their new niche, reach out to the community. And the dynamics have changed so much that all your customers are not in your town. Your miss opportunity is all the customers across the nation. Majority of my
Oh,
sales
I
are
love
half
that you
half
said that.
half of my sales are nationwide. And that's where the YouTube channel fits in, of connecting with those people and resonate with them, as well as other social platforms. And that's where the industry, where I see it, if I had a crystal ball, um, you know, it's going to have a little bit smaller shops, but they're going to be more of the warm hug that is missing. You walk in the shop and they're like, "How can I help you?" Or they'll know your name, kind of like that Cheers moment. Like, "Hey, Norm," and that's that's
100%.
and that's where my successes are, and what I've seen so far. I mean, yeah, we had a really rush, crappy, real bad year, right? I mean, it's like a hangover of hangovers from having a big spike, and we, as the little shops and the very diverse shops, have found successes quickly, and our rebound is going to be a lot faster. It's already started. I've had a lot more service in January and February. My numbers are going up. I mean, the sales of bikes have slowed, but I've shifted gears to doing more service, and that's really taking off. And it's like, if you're in the bike shop, you'll take anything,
Sure.
whatever kind of business you can do it. You're flexible and you've been that way. Big corporate stores can't do that. They're so big ships and they can't turn on a dime. Us little shops, like, oh, you can do chain waxing at your store. You get yourself a chain waxing kit and boom, you're in business in a day. Corporate, it takes them like a month to even think that was an idea, and then
Sure.
to implement it. I mean, I worked at corporate. I mean, I worked at the big five sporting goods, and those ideas took months to years in the planning to do anything. And yeah, they can push things through pretty quick when they feel like they need to. But as a small shop, you can capitalize and react to the market faster and fill those needs of those customers more quickly. And also understand that the prices are continuously keep going up for retail. And what I found in the used market, where I've mentioned this in several of my videos, and a lot of them is like, hey, what you can do is basically dive into the used market yourself, buy used bikes that are your same brands that you have on your floor. So you're providing an entry level product for somebody that's walking in the door, and it's a good used bike, kind of like car dealerships, exactly like car
Sure.
dealerships. You got an inexpensive version, it may be a couple years older, but entry level, anybody riding any mod, any kind of riding, they're not looking for the high end right out of the gate. They just want to get into it. Well, you remember, and you and I know, and everybody else that's in the industry is like, the entry level customer, they don't have all this stuff. They need the help with the helmets and the gloves and the shorts and the everything else. So that's where you get the big warm hug to the customer, and you get to fulfill them with all the stuff that they need. That's where you get the more your profit. Where if you're doing direct to consumers like Canyon and Specialized is doing right now, you don't have any of those after sales or the warm
Sure.
hug or the repeat business. They're just looking for the people buying from them. It's just about the cheapest price, not
It's
the
a unit.
experience. It's a unit.
Hell yeah.
It's a SKU.
It's a unit. Like you'll like we have this analogy in the shop, and I always like explaining to folks because there's darn well there's not a whole lot of money in bikes. It's the accessories. And I always tell people like uh the bike is the vehicle. And I use frozen yogurt as analogies all the time. Like the yeah, I need you to get a cup and put a scoop of chocolate in it, but like I really need you to load that thing up with gummy bears and confetti sprinkles and all that crap because I need it to weigh more at the end so I could right. So it's that same thing. Well, this is yes, it is a vehicle, but it's also like no, like I need something for you to mount the garment on, to mount the carbon bottle cages on, the saddlebag on, the lights on, like all that stuff. And you're absolutely right. And uh, real quick, and I want to come full circle because I do want to wrap this up to keep everyone engaged. And um, you and I spoke a little bit yesterday about monetizing YouTube, and I guess I want to ask you: are you making more from selling bikes on YouTube, or the checks that are coming in the mail from YouTube?
No. um, yeah, not doing YouTube to make it's good beverage money. Let's put it that way. It's it fluctuates. So how you leverage, the it's really kind of hard to say how many bikes are sold indirectly through YouTube with those customer base. But that far outweighs any monetization that you'll get from the dollar amounts, from the ad rev, from the actual videos. But if you get something that's pretty decently sized, like that Specialized video, or how it takes off, I mean, that's, you get 400 or 500 bucks, and you can go through, there's a site called Social Blade, and you can put in people's handles on YouTube and Instagram and see how much they're making. It is a rough estimate, but it's pretty close estimate. I looked up myself. I'm like, oh, that's about right. At the end of the day, it's a little bit extra money. Is it
Would you mind
about?
sharing? I mean, you've got just over 5,000 subscribers. Could I put you on the spot and ask you, like, are you making hundreds of dollars a month, or is this 20 grand a year, 30 grand a year? Like, what is it producing?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like, well, I've hit about, I'm at 4,100 subs right now. I'm hoping to hit around 10 by the end of the year. But right now, I'm probably about close to 300 to 400 a month. That's if I
Hey,
have a
that's awesome.
video that takes off, one of the clickbait ones to really do it, but the general ones will knock that down and you can look at that. So it's, it's something. And the idea is, these videos, they call them evergreen videos. If you get some videos that are evergreen, they're just going to continuously just give me a couple bucks here and there, constantly. That's good. And keep in mind, I'm over 600 videos in, and I hit this hard and fast. So in the last year and a half, I've put up about 600 videos between shorts and long content, and it was a lot of work. But the concept is, for me, is I'm one guy in the garage. I only can make or only can work on so many bikes a month. I only can do so many tune-ups and sell so many parts. So where's the opportunity to actually make more of an income over a longevity of time? So let's say fast forward 10 years from now that I have, I don't know, 5,000 videos out there, and they all are period evergreens like 5200s from Trek or the Rebets or Specialized. All those ones, and people are still watching those. That will actually, it basically, hopefully give me a little bit of small parachute when I get to the age where I need to kind of pull back and retire. That's the concept. But
That's the
really
play. That's awesome.
that's the financial play. But really, when it comes into the day, is I want to help out the people getting into cycling. I also want to help out bike shop people, my people. We've done the grind. We have a huge respect for each other for the most part. If anybody spent a season or two in the back cranking on bikes, we all have the same kind of stories to tell, and we connect. And that's where I love the cycling industry. It saved me. It's something I want to pay it forward to help stronger bike shops, however we're going to look like in the future. But we're still going to need the independent little shops to do what we do, take care of the customer, and they take care of us, and we have those relationships with them. And you can probably think of 5 people's names on the top of your head. They're like, I love to see this person when they come in the door, because we have such great conversation,
Sure.
good connection. And that's, any other job I've had before, in the interim, you never, nothing makes up like that. It's a community for sure.
Man. Well, Justin, thank you so much. Y'all, Justin Bolinger, owner of I Know a Guy Bicycles, no doubt doing stuff a little bit out of the ordinary. He's got a growing customer base. I love your philosophy on customer relations and service and knowing a name. I love your Cheers reference. Knowing the name when people come in the door is so valuable. Pumped at all the listeners for tuning in today and hopefully sharing this before we tune out. Only because, look, it's the marketing guy in me, and I know a guy, but I love the name. What else was on the whiteout board, when you're coming up with names? Because obviously, like just riding along comes, JRA is one that like came to mind. I wrote on my little notepad, but I was like, what? Because I love, like, I know everyone's got a guy, right? Like, I got a guy. Like, yeah, you could have done I got a guy. Like what else was your wife came up with it, which we got to give a shout out to, but what other names?
To be funny, we didn't really go. I mean, it was 2 drinks and dinner at a conference, and that
Done.
was, I think, the second thing she said, to related to the name. That's not only saying. She talked a lot more about her stuff, but I was like, because that was her experience with me. It's like everybody comes to her like, oh, I heard you're dating a guy that works on bikes, so I know a guy. That's where it resonated from, and it was no other ones. It was like, okay, that was it. Just go. I mean, I know those power meetings, right? You spend like hours and days going through all these different concepts and everything, and just lucky for me that we just came up with something so off the cuff, so quick, and there we go.
Man,
So simple.
I I love it, and I love knowing that so many of your more successful videos in terms of hits and ratings have also happened just as organically as the name. Man, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for agreeing to this.
Oh, absolutely.
Always a bit ambitious to watch someone's video and then shoot them a note, being like, "Hey, man, I'd really love to chat." But man, thank you very much, and I gotta imagine you and I are going to be meeting here live at some point.
Oh yeah, look forward to it. Let's do it.
Hey, thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Well, if you made it this long, well, good for you. I know it's kind of lengthy and I get a little wordy, but that's the kind of perspective that they're trying to gain for this. The podcast was aired with only audio through the NBDA, their actual radio thing. I decided to do the actual Zoom video that you just saw to kind of get a little more expressional insights and so forth, and do a kind of comparison of, what audio versus video does. You here watching this on YouTube. Yeah, there's a lot of to unpack here. A lot of it was my story. A couple things after watching it myself, I was kind of like, oh, well, the title was, how does YouTube affect my business, or how am I using it to leverage it? Well, it started as a leverage, and now it's become a passion. Honestly, it's a community of you watching me doing trinkets and fixing things up and doing fun things in the bike shop, where you may not have those particular insights when you're taking your bike to your local bike shop and so forth. I'm trying to pull the curtain back and see what goes on in the back shop area, which there's a lot of fun stuff. A lot of cool tools, a lot of cool bikes, a lot of cool things we do to bikes, and sometimes we ride them. We're mechanics, right? And there's a concept, and there's also a community inside the shop itself in the back. We're all kind of like, I don't know, brothers and sisters of the same family. And it doesn't matter what shop you work at. It's kind of like it's across the board. And various shops have different levels, of course, and different insights and so forth. And I love hearing different stories of different areas, like shops in England and how they're dealing with their environment and their communities and so forth. And Australia, the reach has just been awesome. Well, back to how this is actually leveraging. As a bike shop owner, small micro now, but yeah, I understand the big woes of multiple locations, worked it, small and pop shop, been there, and everything else in between. And also the big bag chain store, which I mentioned was the Big Fat Sporting Goods, which gave me insights as well. Yeah, I've been around, and the thing is we never know everything. Hands down, never know everything. It's always something new, and it's always evolving, and bikes have always been like that, which really intrigued me because I like the new shiny thing for the next year. Well, now it's like, what's the new thing in business, right? Well, YouTube is a platform as much as important as other platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call them now, and other platforms that will come to fruition. And it's always going to change. It's always going to be the next new thing. And is it big? Should I be on it? Should we be pushing on this? Well, you kind of have to leverage all of them. That's what at the end of the day, and see what sticks. Then you start there, and obviously you still support the ones you still got yourself into, but you put more weight into those where you find the most successes. For me, YouTube has been one of the bigger successes, and I can leverage it from a lot of different perspectives. Presenting a bike that I just worked on that I'm trying to sell, or providing a service that, hey, this is what I do in a tune-up. I can't tell you how many tune-ups were driven by the YouTube channel itself. So direct monetary money, as he was asking for, yeah, you get some, but the actual business effect is 10 times, 100 times full. Reason being is you're reaching out to those customers. And I ship across the nation. So if you're in the same boat, same thing. You're featuring those things, how to ship, products, that kind of thing. You got to find your own niche and what you want to do and provide to the community of the cycling, but there is a huge room for all of us to do this. And some of us overlap. Yeah, there's like the bike farmer. He does some of the same stuff I do. He has really successes on that. Then there's Powdery Pace, which is another guy that's really huge, and he's just been doing touring, and he's been doing it for like a long time. So you got those particular individuals that have leveraged it. And some of them are related to bike shops. Some are just YouTuber, social media peoples, which is fine. But when it comes down to the business that this one is actually for, hey, I've seen a lot of bike shops that try to YouTube and they didn't see like instant success, so they just moved on. Well, it is a grind. Honestly, it is. I had to put a year plus into this just to see some true strong results. But the thing is, it's evergreen results. It's just going to keep building and building and building on top of it. So you're getting those people that look for you for those tune-ups, look for those particular upgrade services that you do, those bikes that you're actually refurbishing or new bikes that you're providing and that kind of thing. You got it's the landscape of bike shops have completely changed, right? Completely changed to the point where the independent bike shop is now the bike shop again and no longer the brand shop. What I'm trying to say is during the early 2000s, Trek and Specialized forced a lot of people to become concept stores. Well, that got rid of your niche for a lot of those shops, just lost it. And now we have to go back to that because guess what? Trek and Specialized have their own stores and they don't care about us little guys anymore if they ever did. But what we're looking at now is you find your niche, get back to it. Or if you're a newer shop and you're like, I just walked into a hot mess and I'm just trying to figure it out. Well, we got to go back to the 90s. Woo, woo. Yep, the Wayne's World of the 90s. And yes, we got to go back to that. We are what we're selling, not the brands that we are actually using. Yes, they're there to help, but they're not what we are. And that's where you need to find that niche and use that niche and leverage it on your social platforms as well as YouTube. And therefore, you'll get that beautiful rotating cycle of new customers, better community, and the warm hug that you want to provide to all those customers. Regardless if it's e-bikes to gravel to BMX, this is the platform for you to use. And those are the kinds of things I want to recap after seeing the questions in the videos. And by the way, the questions, I didn't see them beforehand, so it's all on the cuff. So I wanted to kind of do a little rebuttal and go, hey, there's a couple other things that I suggest that you probably think about doing. And yeah, it is pretty, it doubles or triples the time of doing a tune-up or whatever, and another hour or two of building the video and putting it all out there. But I guarantee you the successes of what I've seen so far have been pretty huge. And to be in a situation where we need every little dollar sell customer to just keep going and keep on doing that we're passionate about and enjoy doing, this is something that really could be very beneficial for all those. So if you're part of the NBDA or any other organizations or part of the cycling communities or bike shops or clubs or any of that, here we go. Thank you for hanging out with me. Please add any information that you may have insights and so forth in the comments below. There's more information in the descriptions as well. Thank you for hanging with me in the garage. If it's beautiful in your neck of the woods, please go for a ride. Until next time, from the garage, have a